last time on Oz Hour?
Okay, so last time on Oz Hour, Dorothy was in a ship in the middle of the ocean. A giant storm happens and she gets taken out on some fucking coop thingy. And then she meets a hen that all of a sudden starts talking to her. Her name is Bellina, because we love Bellina, and they become friends, and they're on the land now. They crash into the land. They find a little key, and they're like, "Oh, what's going on? Well, we'll just go look for some food now." And then they grab the wrong food, get chased by these terrifying wheeler things, and then they use the key to open a rock or something. And there's a copper man, and it winded him up, and he began to talk about things like the king and how horrible he was, and he was left to die, and that we are actually on the land of Ev. I think that's it.
Hi there, and welcome to Oz Hour, the only place where you can hear everything you never knew about the wonderful and strange land of Oz.
That's right. With the help of some alcohol, we will be discussing each of the 14 books in L. Frank Baum's Wizard of Oz series.
Today, we will be continuing with Book 3, Ozma of Oz, covering chapters 5 through 7.
We're your hosts, Blake Stone
And Wyatt Swangham.
and joining us as always is our resident Oz initiate, Hannah Aguirre. Woo!
Yeah,
Woohoo!
that's me.
So, Hannah, as usual, you just played last time on, where you recapped chapters 1 through 4 of Book 3, Ozma of Oz. It took you about 46 seconds to cover it, and listeners, Hannah did pretty well, but here is what she missed. Dorothy was on a ship traveling to Australia because Uncle Henry, hint to his friends, is very, very sick, maybe dying. The food that the Wheelers chased Bellina and Dorothy away from is the food from the lunch and dinner pail trees. Very important. And then also just a little more about Ev that we kind of glossed over. King Evaldo is the king of Ev. He was a terrible and nasty king who sold his family and 10 children to the Gnome King, who turned them into little ornaments and then hid them around his palace. The king of Ev regretted his decision, so he locked Tick-Tock into a hidden room in a rock on the beach and dove into the ocean to his own death. So, listeners, that is where we're picking up on.
Yeah, that's a lot.
So,
You guys wanted a lot from me.
Are we counting it as a win or is that a loss?
I think that's a pretty good win. Some of the details that she missed were kind of superfluous.
I think so, too.
But there is some stuff that we will happen to be
good
touching
to
on.
know.
So,
Well, congratulations.
yeah, I think your first win, maybe, at least by my standards.
Oh,
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
that might be
every
true,
other time
actually.
you've won, I'm always like, I'm going to call it a win. And he's
know.
like, all right.
No,
you're the good
but
parent.
this time I'll say, okay, none of us here are parents, so let's not even say that.
just on our
Anyway,
personal time.
Before we started recording, Wyatt whipped us up some cocktails, and we're all enjoying this delicious cocktail. What's it called?
It is Langudier's Ruby Key.
It smells really good.
I'm glad. It is kind of a play on a gimlet, so it's gin instead of simple syrup. There is grenadine, and then it has key limes in it, which is why, in part, why it's called the Ruby Key. So,
Ooh,
and some seltzer.
That's
all
cute.
right. Shall we slurp?
Yes, let's serve.
Slurpity slurp slurp.
Long and throaty.
That's delightful.
That is delicious.
Ooh, that's really good.
Book 3, Ozma of Oz. Chapter 5, Dorothy opens the dinner pail.
So, if you remember from last time, we're still stuck on this like rock pile hill where we found the TikTok man.
Yeah, Dorothy has just wound him back up and discussed with him, and so she's like, okay, let me just go ahead and take you, because she's like kind of up the hill, I guess, where he was like trapped at. So she's like, come out here, I'll go ahead and show you what's been going on. And he shows her the Wheelers that are threatening to kill them.
Yeah, and TikTok's like, oh, the Wheelers? They're actually nothing to be afraid of. But also, he speaks like a lot more slowly. He's like, you must not fear the Wheelers.
It's interesting because for an author who doesn't know what a robot is and will never see like a moving picture on a screen,
He really
the
has it
way that
down.
the way that he writes like robot dialogue is so choppy and like what you'd expect from like the 40s. It's just interesting.
It's very, I am a robot.
Yeah, where did he hear
Lots
that?
of hyphens.
Where did he hear that?
Maybe in his dreams.
But yeah, I mean, he's just like, yeah, the Wheelers are nothing to be afraid of. Dorothy's like, why shouldn't we fear them? And he's like, because they're
He
Oh no, they gotta wind it back up.
exactly. Yeah. So he freezes. He stops speaking. And Belina's like, Dorothy, like, you must not have wound him up very much. And Dorothy's like, oh, you're right. I barely wound him up. I didn't know what I was doing, but I will definitely wind him to the max this time.
Oh.
And so she does. Well, she does want to, at least.
But yeah, so Dorothy goes to wind him up tighter, but realizes that the key is gone. And Belina's like, well, all right, like, come on, let's look on the ground. I'll help you look. Like, she is like, let's
She's
hop,
getting a little
hop to it,
annoyed.
girl.
Yeah. She's like, why'd you lose the fucking key?
Yeah,
Actually?
like that. She had one thing in her hand.
Yeah.
Dorothy doesn't have a cell phone. She didn't go to like look at
And
her
it's not like
notifications.
Belina can hold things.
Yes.
You know
oh my
what, though?
god.
The thing is, the key didn't. Dorothy didn't drop the key. The key was left wound up in TikTok at this time.
Oh, you're
and
right.
It fell out of him.
No.
So like, I think it's kind of a critical failure in his design that like someone has to be holding on to the key. I mean, obviously you would hold on to the key, but it's like it can just fall out so easily. You leave the key in a clock, don't you?
You know, well, I guess you
Clock
could,
doesn't
I guess
run around.
So, but I mean,
don't
like,
think I've ever put a key in a clock before.
no, no.
I mean, I haven't.
That'd be back. That's the 40s.
Okay, yeah, because that kind of confused me for a sec. I was like,
Well, we'll fully get into it, but they go back and Dorothy is like searching for the key. She finds it in a crack. It's just in a crack. So she grabs it. It's really nothing that dramatic.
No.
But
God.
she is like, I am not going to ever lose this.
she got scared.
But yes, she did. And Belina's like, put that in your pocket and then you won't lose it again, which I think is untrue. A pocket is not very secure
Yeah, that thing's in
necessarily.
my fist.
Yeah. So either way, though, in theory, it will be safe from now on.
Yeah, but Dorothy rewinds TikTok as far as the key will turn, which apparently like takes a lot of effort. She's like,
my
she's
God.
pulling that thing as
Okay.
tight as it can
Yeah,
go.
no wonder she didn't do it all the way.
Yeah.
And then when he's back online, TikTok tells Dorothy that the Wheelers are actually just like big wussies, and they're only picking on her because she's a little girl.
All
like they're
talk.
totally
Yes.
useless.
He was like, they won't fight. If I had a club to threaten them with, they would just run away. But unfortunately, he has no club.
Doesn't
He
have
is a
club.
man made of copper, but we'll get into that.
Yeah. So like TikTok is just like, all right, Dorothy, like wind up my thinking mechanism as tightly as you can. I'm gonna think of a plan to get us out of here.
Yeah. And meanwhile, Dorothy eats from her dinner pail. And I actually just copied this description of what's inside into my notes.
Same.
Because it feels very like Hayao Miyazaki level food.
Okay.
So in the cover, she found a small tank that was full of very nice lemonade. It was covered by a cup, which might also, when removed, be used to drink the lemonade.
So like a thermos, right?
Yes, it's a thermos.
Oh, this is like
Of fresh
that-
lemonade.
You know those like TikToks of those like weird apartments, and they have all these little gadgets and stuff that are like steam useful. That's what it's giving me.
That very much.
Yeah.
The rest of it won't, but that does.
That first part does at
'Cause
least.
the rest is just, well, okay. So the rest is food, but within the pail were 3 slices of turkey, 2 slices of cold tongue, some lobster salad, 4 pieces of bread and butter, a small custard pie, an orange, and 9 large strawberries, and some nuts and raisins, which we all know are Dorothy's favorite
she went
Oz treat,
crazy.
Fairyland
Yeah, she
treat.
loves nuts, berries, and
Yeah.
bread and butter.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah, and it even
It's a
says
go-to.
the nuts in the dinner pail grew already cracked, so she didn't even have to pick them apart to get the meats
Isn't
out.
that quite convenient?
It's insane.
She's a lucky
but
girl.
that's a huge lunch.
That's a large lunch. Yeah.
I would need a nap and a half after that. Are you kidding me?
And to her, well, we'll get to it, but she doesn't finish and she saves it for later.
Yeah, she does offer some of the food to TikTok, who like obviously doesn't eat food. And she also
he's like,
offers-
I'm a machine.
She also offers some to Belina, who doesn't like to eat dead things and
Yeah.
decides to stick to her bugs.
Oh,
Belina's
that's right.
like, I'm eating bugs, but
Yeah.
she's also getting kind of pissy because there's not that many bugs. But Dorothy asks TikTok if the lunch and dinner trees like actually belong to the Wheelers, because the Wheelers were like shouting at them like, you stole the food and that means you die. And he's like, no, absolutely, of course not. They belong to the royal family. But like, since there isn't really a royal family right now because they're all imprisoned and or dead, the Wheelers are just claiming them as their own. So they're just being fraudsters to be jerks, basically.
Yeah, TikTok's like,
There's no
honestly, like,
surprise.
look at the bottom of that pail. It's gonna have the royal E on the bottom
yeah.
of it. And she looks, and yeah, apparently these dinner pails grow full of food made of tin and with engravings on the bottom.
Yeah.
They just grow off a tree that way.
It doesn't even make it more crazy to me.
I guess not.
But it is crazy.
I just want to know the science behind it, the biology,
It makes you wonder.
something.
Ev doesn't have scientists.
And hardly any biology based on what we've seen so far.
And Christians.
And what we've yet to see. Yes. they're Christian scientists.
Speaking of biology, I mean, Dorothy asked, she's like, are the Wheelers like the only like species on Ev? And TikTok tells her that they're creatures that just like live out in the woods, but they're not the only things that live there.
Yeah, he says the king would carry a whip around just to like punish them when he would walk around, and that they would always try attacking him. Like they'd also try attacking TikTok, but he was just too big. He was too big, too sturdy. Like they try and attack him, and they would just like fall off. He literally, I think this is the part where he was like, they would just polish me because they tried punching me, and it would just like scuff me and like into a polish. So he's fine.
Dorothy's like, yeah, like you seem durable. Like, who made you?
Yeah,
you know,
because she only knows fucking
the Tin
something
Woodman.
made of straw.
Yeah.
and then
true.
a hollow tin man that can get dented pretty easily.
Yeah, and the
like-
Tin Man is like magic robot man, where he's not even a robot, you know.
yeah.
But it seems
He's a dead person.
He is. Yeah, he's a
is
a
a
haunted
dead-
suit of armor.
actually-
He's literally a possessed
Oh my
suit
god,
of
that
armor.
actually makes so much sense in my head for some reason because I really always wondered about his soul. But
Yeah,
if
like where
he's
it
a
is.
spirit
Yeah, he just
That makes
inhabits
sense.
that.
and he just takes over, oh god,
Happy Halloween.
that really makes me feel better.
Yeah. So TikTok answers her, and he's like, "Well, I'm actually the only mechanical man who's ever been completed." And he was invented at the factory in Evna, which is the royal city of Ev. So in the city, it's basically the city, or it's like the Emerald City, or the city of emeralds, but it's in Ev, and it's called Evna for some reason.
Evna.
Yeah.
And Smith and Tinker, the inventors who made him, they're both gone now.
Yeah.
Like Smith was an artist as well as an inventor.
Do we know how much time has passed since the king left and
So
TikTok?
we don't know yet.
It seems fairly recent. It seems like this news is kind of traveling because, well, we're going to learn actually what the Wheeler says and also who's
okay,
coming.
so we're coming on it.
He tells us that Smith and Tinker are both gone now. Smith was an artist as well as an inventor. And while painting a river, it was so realistic that he reached across the river to paint some flowers on the other side. And he fell into his own painting and drowned.
And don't ask us how.
So
It was just
real-
so real.
It was just so apparently if you're a really good artist, you become a wizard, I guess. Honestly,
Interesting.
because like that's impossible.
I need to
Ain't
tell
that
my
the
mom
truth,
this.
But you know,
I thought she was making realistic paintings. I guess not.
well, you're lucky she hasn't drowned.
Yeah, I am.
honestly,
She
count
does a
your
lot
blessings.
of landscapes.
On the other hand, Tinker, which is the other inventor, he built a ladder that was so high it could reach the moon, which that alone is such a strange thing, or interesting thing, I think. But he went up there to climb to pick stars from the sky for the king's crown, and he really liked it on the moon. So he just got on the moon and pulled up the ladder,
You know
and
what
he
I-
hasn't been seen since.
I didn't think about this until just
he
now.
hasn't been seen since.
Not since.
Ev must have a different moon than us, right? I mean, I guess Dorothy got there by sea.
She's gotten there by sea and by air, and they only have one moon and one sun.
Wait,
so
so
They have the same moon as us.
is
yeah.
Oz and all these are they not on our planet?
They must be.
it could be this is a big conversation,
it's a
guys,
dimension.
because it could be a separate dimension that you cross the boundary of, where like in theory they would see the same things. Like, but do they see, like in 2022, do people in Oz look up and see like jet planes going across the sky? Are they on Google Maps? Can we zoom in
Yeah, how
somewhere between
different
here and Australia to
Is
see
the
Oz?
dimension?
Yeah, and well, I mean,
I
they have
guess.
grass, they have the same chickens, they all apparently speak English and measure in miles.
Yeah.
So there's a lot there really to unpack.
Yeah.
So much that it's too big of a question.
It is kind of too big of a question because also, did he put thought into this?
Yeah, it's like, where was his thought process? I
Yeah.
think that they just showed, and granted, this is the third book, so like, and we've certainly given them all a lot of attention already so far, but
Yeah.
like, you know, he didn't also know the scope of what technology would be like,
Yeah.
like, you know,
It
planes
could be like
barely
an
existed.
enchanted moment.
Yes, I'm
Yeah.
thinking
And
that.
also, I mean, he's creating part of the groundwork for fantasy and other worlds.
That's
you know,
true,
like
yeah.
he's one of the first doing that. Never really thought
And
about
people
that
have
either.
to just been, yeah, that's true. Because then other people just depict it the way that maybe he didn't really understand. I don't know, because
Yeah.
it's just like it's way before our time.
He didn't have anything to base it off of.
Yeah.
So TikTok points out that like Tinker was a great loss since no one else would know how to repair TikTok if something happened to his machinery. Like that guy is his own personal surgeon. No one else could possibly.
And so at this point, Dorothy begins to reminisce about the Scarecrow, who's another great thinker that she can think of. And okay, Belina, I don't know if we've all noticed and talked about, has some sass. She doesn't really believe what Dorothy's saying about Oz. And so when she's like, yep, the smartest man I ever knew was a scarecrow, Belina, who's like trying to eat bugs, is super hangry because there's not that many. She looks up and she says,
She loses it.
nonsense! None of this Oz stuff can be real. Talking animals, she is a talking animal, Tin Woodsman, scarecrows, and Dorothy's like, I saw it, it's real. And then TikTok.
Like I'm usually on Belina's side if we're picking
Yeah.
sides, you know. But you're talking right now, talking to a person, and you also just met a talking copper man.
Yes,
Yeah.
and she's seen
And
Wheelers.
Wheelers.
Talk about the pot calling the kettle
Let's
black.
start. Let's start realizing what's going on.
But
Yeah.
TikTok is like, actually, all things are possible in the land of Oz. It's like God's green heaven or something.
He's like, it's a fairy
yeah,
country, so anything could happen
It's a
there.
wonderful fairy country.
Oh my
Like,
God, he
the
really
things
wishes
you
he
couldn't
lives there,
imagine.
huh?
Oh yeah, it's like
Oh,
That's
country.
luxury. That's luxury fairy country when you go to Oz.
Oh my
he's on the
God,
outer.
that's like the
he's on the
fucking-
rim where the king killed himself and
The
sold his family to the
Hamptons.
gnome king.
yeah, the king
oh my god.
sold his family and died by suicide.
yeah. They're not in a good part of town.
Dorothy asks TikTok like, "Oh, like you know the land of Oz? Like you know about this?" He's like, "I've never been there, but I've heard of it since like we're only separated by this big deadly desert."
Yeah.
Heard of it?
Always the desert.
Heard of it?
It's always the desert.
Oh my
We
God.
know her well.
Yeah, and Dorothy's like, well, I'm glad to hear about the Emerald City or about Oz. Like, my friend the Scarecrow is actually the king. And TikTok's like, he's not the king anymore.
He's like, "Where you been, girl?"
Yeah, and he explains the Civil War and how they discovered Ozma, who is the rightful ruler of Oz.
Yeah.
And Dorothy's like, that's all news to me. I wonder how my friends are doing.
Oh
And
my
also, who the
God,
fuck
she
is
doesn't even
Ozma?
know who Ozma.
No.
I just also kind of put together that this book is called Ozma, the Land of Oz?
Yeah, Ozma of Oz.
Ozma of Oz. I'm just like, okay.
What was her dad's? Oh, her dad's name was like Pikerni. It wasn't anything.
Something
Ozzy.
incredibly strange.
But yeah, TikTok like kind of goes back to thinking while Dorothy finishes up her dinner, puts the leftovers back in the pail. Belina pecks up the crumbs even after talking all that shit.
Yeah, because she's hungry.
And then TikTok tells Dorothy and Belina like, "Hey, follow me down the hill. I've got a plan. Let's get to safety to the land of Evna." And he promises to protect them. And Dorothy's like, "Cool."
Yeah, they're like, let's get the hell out of here.
Yes, TikTok.
And that's the end of chapter 5. Dorothy opens the dinner pail. And while I know that seemed like a big part of the chapter, if you had to change the name, Blake, what would you call it?
I would call that chapter a tick-tock on the clock, but the bunny don't stop and no. Oh, 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 oh.
Chapter 6. The Heads of Languidir.
We're about to meet one of the coolest Oz characters probably to exist so far.
I would say so. This is pretty mysterious and one of the first very exciting things about this book.
L. Frank Baum, I'm telling you, took a writing class this time.
He went on.
So TikTok starts leading Belina and Dorothy down the path and says to Dorothy, like, "Hey, give me that dinner pail."
Yeah, he's being a gentleman. He's being very kind. He's clearing away the boulders out of the path. So they're on their way out.
And he's like, "Oh, I'll take your dinner pail." She's like, "Oh, well, thank you."
Yeah, she curtsies.
That's kind of cute.
But the minute they're on that sand, the three wheelers that are left are on their feet shrieking.
They start doing that freaky screaming thing they did last time.
They are rolling. They're rapidly rolling toward them. And TikTok, like, oh my God.
Dong.
Yeah, he goes off. He busts the one in front right upside the head. The dinner pail like makes this bell sound. The wheeler goes down. He's screaming and he just runs away. TikTok looks at Dorothy and he says,
Damn.
"See, I told you they're nothing to be scared of."
Well, you're
And
actually
then
crazy.
he puts his glasses on.
Yeah,
It's-
that
I
was a
think it's
Quentin
actually a
Tarantino-
you thing.
Yeah.
I think you're actually crazy. I mean, when he said he was going to protect them, I guess he was going to
Yeah,
protect them.
he's a machine.
I swear on my family.
Yeah.
You're gonna be safe.
God.
I mean, he
harm's
did work
way.
with the king, so he has a
It's
good
true.
resume.
He does, yeah. And he's dealt with wheelers before too.
But I mean, a second wheeler goes for TikTok. TikTok's like, "Bah, absolutely not."
Bashes
Crack.
him. Yeah.
Third wheeler didn't want the smoke, so he got out of
Didn't
there.
even try.
He
just
learned
ran.
a lesson from the 40 wolves in the first book who just
Right.
lined up for the slaughter.
You know,
Yeah.
something I like about her new crew is that they're so much more mature
Yes.
and they've
Yeah.
been alive for so much
A
longer.
little more relatable too. Like
Yeah,
Belina's
almost.
sass.
I think
Like, I get it.
the characters from the first and second book, I think, are very easy for children to relate to. But for adults, it's like that's so basic and like immature. But these characters are funny for adults and probably also very relatable for kids. It's like going and seeing
Yeah.
Ice Age and being like, "Oh, I'm an adult and I get these jokes," and the
Yeah.
kids like it because it's fun.
Yeah.
If
This
I was
is
a
a new
kid, I mean,
genre.
I fucking love Chicken Run when
Oh,
I was
yeah.
a kid.
Now you
I
got
love a
raised
talking
by the
chicken.
Holocaust.
Oh God.
Yeah, the first book is Baby Looney Tunes.
Yeah. But at that point, all three of those wheelers were like running away. They were the only ones left when all the other ones went back to the forest. And Belina flies up, jumps onto TikTok's shoulder, and she's just cackling. She's like, "Oh my God, like you're brave and you're smart.
This is
and
the
wants
thing.
to fuck
now
him.
we're
This-
free of
This
these
is
ugly
the thing
creatures."
that they do in every book. They beat one little thing and they're like, "Ha ha!
Yeah.
Yes, yes, aren't we
Huzzah!
great? And your charm and my
Yeah.
smarts, and yes, we are, and we will forever."
But you may remember,
Is that the trailer?
that there were dozens and dozens of wheelers in the woods who chased them literally like a few hours ago.
Yeah.
Or I guess it was the night before. Either way, those wheelers emerge from the forest and they are a giant mob.
Yeah, TikTok just grabs Dorothy, grabs
Yeah.
Belina, and they are just ambushed.
Oh my gosh.
But do you know what happened? I have 3 words, and I
Okay.
don't think you could guess them.
of like what will happen or
The first 3 words of the section here are rattlety bang bang. It is rattlety bang bang went to the dinner pail.
ew.
Because
Because-
TikTok did what a TikTok do.
He uses it like a machine gun or something.
What
Like
the
he
fuck?
is just rattling it off, busting heads. Wheelers are on the ground. It's the sound of him bashing this dinner pail into their heads is so loud. The ones who are still
Is that why
coming,
he asked for the dinner pail?
I think
Yeah.
so. I literally when I made that note, I was like, "Oh, he's being chivalrous."
Well,
I was being
remember
genuine, and then I read this, and I was like, "He was being clever."
Earlier, he said, "Give me a club, and
Yeah.
I'll fuck a wheeler up."
Yeah, and
He has a club.
Yeah, now he has
absolutely
something.
destroys
he has
them.
yeah, okay. He's done this before. He knows what he's doing.
Exactly, and
Yeah.
that's the thing is like I don't know how long he was
I
with the
should have
king
questioned
beforehand,
him.
but yeah, he knows what he's doing. It's the sound of him bashing skulls in is so loud that other wheelers just run away. They're like, I'm not even gonna get close to that anymore. Like,
Do the
I'm
wheelers bleed?
freak- I think they bleed
I
like
think they bleed.
profusely. Like
What
it's
color?
like wet.
I mean, they're
blood.
basically like men,
Just on wheels?
just like
with
their
wheel
bodies
hands
are,
and
like,
long arms.
Men on wheels.
Yeah,
That's
men
actually
on wheels.
terrifying.
And their wheels are made of fingernail,
But
if you
yeah,
recall.
But they all go running away, and the king of the Wheelers, because everyone needs a king.
It's the leader.
He's the leader.
right.
I even capitalized leader. I was like, he's the king.
But he is.
we all know what it is.
He falls on his back. He's like
Yeah.
a turtle.
He trips over one of the other
Oh my
Wheelers.
god, they're like
and falls on his
goats.
back.
Yes.
And they get scared.
Oh my God,
They go
yeah.
stiff.
Before he can get back on his feet, TikTok grabs him by his lapels and he's like, call your boys off.
Yeah.
Like, he's like, call them off.
Tell your people to
This is some
go
mafia shit.
away. Yeah. And the Wheeler at first, he like doesn't really react. He like resists. TikTok shakes him so hard that his teeth rattle together like hail falling against a window. It says that he shook him like a terrier would shake a rat.
As a terrier dog does a rat. I have that in my notes too.
He just is just like
I've
mean,
never seen that before. I'm just gonna put that out.
Well, you
there.
can picture it.
Yeah, it's
Wishbone
pretty
with a rat in his
gruesome.
mouth.
Ooh, it's pretty gruesome.
It is horrific. And so he's just shaking the shit out of him. And then he like gives him a second to kind of like come back to, and it takes the Wheeler a second. He's like, okay, like I'll help you, basically.
TikTok's like, okay, cool, thank you. And you're my prisoner now.
Yeah.
And you have to do what I say.
Oh God. And I'm sorry. The Wheeler is like, you'll be sorry, I'm fierce. And TikTok's like, I'm not a human, so I can't be sorry. And I can't feel joy, and that'll never change. Also, you're wrong to think you're fierce. And then he's just going off. He's like, you can't do anything with your little wheels. You're a bunch of, all you can do is, you can't even scratch.
All you can
can't
do
pull
is be
hair.
loud.
Yeah, all you can do is be loud and scream and shout.
He's a high school bully.
The Wheeler bursts into tears.
Oh,
Yeah.
see,
See,
he
and what
is.
you just said is what Dorothy said.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
the Wheeler's like, oh, you found out our secret. We're weak. Like we want everyone to fear us because we ain't shit. And
Yeah.
Dorothy's like, oh, you poor thing.
Yeah.
Like, and it's
Yeah.
like, no, he would have killed
I know
you.
he was
Exactly.
ready to kill, but I do kind of feel bad.
Like he's like dressed in his little suit, and he's like, now all of our enemies are gonna know that we're weak and that they can just kill us, and we're gonna be attacked. And Dorothy's like, we'll keep your secret, don't worry.
Yeah, at least keep the
But
secret.
she was like, but you can't attack little children anymore. And he's like, no, we won't. Like, and I'm not even a bad guy. Like, I just have to act scary.
It's like the Nuremberg trials.
Well,
Just
TikTok
following
doesn't.
orders.
TikTok doesn't play by those rules because he says, well, actually, you're mean and you harass people, and you don't have to do that because
That's
what
true.
you're
You could just
saying is
live
that
your
you have
life.
to. Yeah. And he's like, you don't have to do that. So if you can cure those faults, I will keep your secret. But otherwise, I'm going to have you all killed, is the implicit part at the end.
yeah,
And the Wheeler's
he's like threatening the family.
Yeah.
Wheeler's like, okay, like cool. And TikTok's like, great, secret kept. And the Wheeler's like,
I
oh, like
love TikTok.
oh,
Yes.
he's awesome. And the Wheeler's like, oh, thank you so much for your kindness. And TikTok's like, again, I'm a machine, not kind.
Let's clear this up.
just
real
existing.
quick.
Yeah, he's like, I'm just doing what I'm wound up to do, which in this case is protect this little girl. And that's what I'm doing. And protect the good of the people.
He's a man of his word.
Yeah. But then he gets down to business because he's like, now tell me, who rules the land of Ev? Because he's been locked in a cave,
Yeah, he
for
doesn't
like
know.
who knows how long. And thankfully the Wheeler obliges and gives a very detailed explanation.
Yeah, he's like Princess Languidir, who is King of Valdo's niece. She's currently living in the palace, and she's spending the money from the treasury. So she's the closest thing to a ruler that Ev has right now. So,
But she's
King
not really ruling.
What's her name again?
Languidir.
Princess Languidir.
Isn't that gorgeous?
Languidir. That's
Yes.
interesting.
It is interesting.
So TikTok's like, Princess Languidir, I have no idea who that is. Like, what does she look like? Which, interesting, like, help the man who can only do what he's wound up to do. Like, you're going to help him to jog his memory. He has a memory to remember what Languidir's face
I
looks
mean,
like.
he would. I mean, yeah, like he can remember what happened before he was
Fair.
locked
It's not like he
away.
keeps forgetting who Dorothy is.
Yeah, but specifically though, the Wheeler said that Princess Languidir is the niece of the king. So I think in this moment he's like, oh well, maybe I've seen her before and just like not known she was Princess Languidir or was the niece of the king. So maybe he's hoping that she was that girl with the very distinct hairstyle. I don't know what he's looking for.
I mean, even still, I mean, the Wheeler's like, I've seen her 20 times. I don't know what she looks like. She always wears a different face. You can really only recognize her by the ruby key. Ding. She always wears around her wrist.
Yes, featuring our cocktail, Languidir's Ruby Key. But Dorothy is like, oh, okay, that's crazy, and she has to be a witch then. Like, she must be a witch because that's the only kind of person who could look different all 20 times you've seen them. And the Wheeler's like, well, I don't think she's a witch, but like, she's definitely strange. Like, something weird's going on. She's like very vain. She stays in this single room filled with mirrors all day, but like, that's
Plastic
it.
surgery.
I guess, 20 times. That could have been over the course of 20 years. So at this point, they exit the forest and they see this beautiful valley. There's quaint little farmhouses. There's really nice roads. Like, it's a really nice place. And there's this beautiful castle, and they can't see it yet, but up close, there's little flower beds and shrubs, and it's just beautiful, basically.
Yeah, it's about a mile away.
Yes, yeah. And I'm thinking, based on the like illustrations and stuff in the book, because there isn't much description, it's kind of more medieval than Oz is. Like, it's less giant emeralds in the walls and more like, what a beautiful medieval village.
Giving like Renaissance.
Yes, very much giving Renaissance.
Love a period piece.
We love a period piece, whatever that means to you.
So they clear that mile. They get to the front door of the king's own apartments, but the door is tightly shut, and there's a sign on the door that says, "Owner absent. Please knock at the third door in the left wing."
Yeah. And then there's like an interchange where the Wheeler's like, oh, it's to the right. And they're like, are you trying to trick us? And he's like, no, there was 3 wings, but some were knocked down because she wanted to trick people. It's just this like weird little joke thing. But he's like, it's really that door right there. I'm telling you the truth. So they're like, oh, okay, then we release you from service. Please go back to your people and be good. And he books it out of there. He is sprinting on his wheels. He peeled out in
you
the
like
like
see the
grass.
marks.
Yeah. So they knock on the door, and this little maid opens the door and greets them, and she's like, what's up? And they're like, we want to see Princess Langwidere. And she's like, okay, well, I'll grant you an audience. And so they're starting to walk in, and Bellina starts to walk in, and the maid is like, shoo, shoo. And she starts like flapping an apron in her face. And Bellina's like, you shoo, I'm coming in with them. That's literally what she says, is you shoo. And she's like,
I love that.
the maid's like, you can talk? And Bellina's like, can you hear me? And the maid's like, you know what? The princess is not going to like this because, like, you're a chicken. And Bellina just flies at her face. The maid ducks, and Bellina, like, catches up to Dorothy. And the maid's like, okay, but the queen is not going to like this. And it's not going to be my fault that you guys did this.
Oh my gosh. I love that little
Yeah.
extra piece added in there.
Yes, it's very character development for Bellina.
Yeah. She's like, I will not be oppressed. I'm going to meet her
Yeah.
with my
God
friends.
bless.
Good for her.
I
Stand up
know.
for yourself.
So yeah, I mean, the maid goes in to tell Langwidere that she has visitors, and Langwidere's in her throne room, surrounded by floor-to-ceiling mirrors, and the floor is this polished, reflective silver. So when Langwidere's sitting and playing melodies on her mandolin, she can admire her features. Like, no matter where she looks, she can admire every angle of her face and see all of her beautiful features.
And also, when the maid walks in, she is currently playing the mandolin and looking at herself, like, in the moment. The ceiling is also mirrors, because why not? Why not? And Hannah, quick guest trivia: what's a mandolin?
I'm pretty sure it's a musical instrument.
It's a good start.
Is it the thing? I just, I've humiliated myself a lot on this podcast, but of just not knowing things.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say what I think, and you guys know me, so.
Yes.
Judgment-free zone. Okay. It is the thing that calls snakes, or like the thing that snakes.
Oh,
like a
recorder?
flute? Like in like a caricature when someone's like playing a flute and there's a
Yeah.
cobra coming out.
Yeah.
Isn't a mandolin like a guitar?
A mandolin is, yes. It is a guitar, basically.
I bet you knew that. But it was such an easy question that
I
it was
really
kinda
thought it was
confusing.
something that was long and like thick, and you like.
Oh, are you thinking of a didgeridoo?
Yes.
Okay. Very different, but you were thinking of an obscure instrument.
Yeah,
so
and I
at
was
least
like,
your
that
brain
might
was
be
somewhere.
something. And I didn't realize that they use the flute for snakes.
Yeah, it's some kind of a flute. I think, Blake, you said recorder,
It's like a
right?
recorder.
Yeah,
Recorder.
something like that. I don't know my wind instruments. Or is that a reed instrument? The mandolin is a stringed musical instrument in the lute family. It's been around for a very long time, it looks like. I'm just looking at the Wikipedia now, just browsing. It's kind of ugly. Well, the one Wikipedia doesn't do good pictures of food, and they don't do good pictures of musical instruments, is my review. But at any rate, she is playing one of those in her room, and
she's surrounded. She's surrounded by floor-to-ceiling mirrors with a reflective floor, and when the maid enters, like Langwidere is even saying to herself, like, "This head is so beautiful. I should really wear it more often, but I don't think it's like my most beautiful head in my collection of heads."
Okay, so she's Jeffrey Dahmer.
Almost.
That's what I'm picking up from this.
Well, the maid is like, "Hey, there's company," and she like tells her the names, like Dorothy of Kansas and Bellina the hen or whatever the hell. And the princess is like, "That's a really interesting list of people. You should send them up." And she's like, "Wait a minute. What does Dorothy Gale of Kansas look like? Is she pretty?" Because she doesn't want to be surpassed.
Yeah.
She's like, "I don't
it's like
want
the Snow White situation.
Yes, exactly. Actually, that's an interesting interpretation or reflection on that.
She is a witch.
Because it is very that. And she's like, if she, like, I don't want her beauty to surpass mine, so I think I'm going to go ahead and switch to head number 17. Isn't that one beautiful? And the maid, who we learn her name is Nanda, is like, "Oh, yes, that is a splendidly beautiful head."
Nanda leads Langwidere to her cabinet.
Also, quick question. How old is Dorothy now? I think we did say that in the first chapters.
This is probably not terribly long after she was in Oz before. It's maybe been like 2 years. She's a little girl for like ever.
So she'll probably be like 12 or something.
It's
I was
like
going to
an
say she's
episode
probably
of-
11 or 12.
Yeah.
Because she seems more mature for sure. And Oz had a revolution. We're not sure exactly how long between when Dorothy left and we began our journey with Tip.
But
So-
obviously that stuff did happen.
Yeah.
So.
But
Yes, exactly.
I mean,
yeah.
it feels a little more like Calvin and Hobbes, where no matter they could be 20 years apart, Calvin is always a little boy. I
Yeah.
think that's how Dorothy operates. She's a cartoon character. You know,
That's fair. That's fair.
Maybe
that's just
when
like
she's in the
vibe I get.
fairyland, she doesn't age, so it
That
takes
could be.
longer.
God.
I would prefer to like watch her get older. Obviously, if they did like a movie franchise, we would. But Nanda like helps Langwidere to her cabinet. I use air quotes, which is an entire dressing room with 30 heads inside of it. She has 30 heads in her head collection. And each head has its own cabinet, which is lined with velvet, and it has a beautiful ornate door with a golden number on the front. Remember, she's on her way to get number 17.
Yeah.
Oh.
And semi-importantly, each cabinet in the back of it has a mirror backing that's like jewel encrusted, which will come up in a second for her mourning process.
We learn that every morning, Langwidere wakes up and gets out of her crystal bed. She sleeps on a crystal bed? What the fuck is that?
Is the mattress crystal?
Or is it one big individual crystal? Or is it a total bed frame and mattress made of crystals? I know.
Because that's
Ooh.
giving me like honeymoon like sweets.
Yes,
But,
it's
like,
like kind of
it's-
tacky.
So you
Yeah,
mean
yeah,
like
yeah.
a foam topper on top of a crystal bed frame?
Oh,
That's what I'm wondering.
you know
'cause
what?
Is she just like, I like it hard?
I don't know. Oh,
Some like it hard.
I don't know why I got so excited
like it
about this. But they have that hotel in, I think, Sweden or somewhere like in the Nordic areas. But it's all carved out of ice. The beds are carved out of ice.
That's
The
right.
I've seen
furniture,
that.
like they just throw like hopefully synthetic animal furs and stuff on them. So like it's comfortable, but like you're on ice. It'd be the same thing if it was a big crystal or a bed made out of carved crystals or whatever.
Interesting.
I actually didn't have that in my notes. So that's insane.
It's ridiculous. I can't.
And it brings the question. I'm also imagining if it's like a bathtub that's full of tiny crystals, which like might be kind of fun or scary.
I'd do
oh my god!
that.
You know
That
what
would
though?
be fun.
I would work myself to the bottom of it and then end up swallowing crystals and dying. So
Fair.
Never
I'd
mind.
definitely do that for the photo, though.
yeah.
Glass
Yeah,
of
you have
cheap
a
Coke
Use the
Prosecco.
room once.
Yeah, it's just like a drone above you, and you're just like, "Oh, I'm in my bathtub bed." I'm so sorry.
No, yeah, morning routine. Go for it.
So she wakes up in her crystal bed every morning. She gets up, she goes into her cabinet, and she chooses a head. So she goes to the cabinet, opens it up, and then there's the mirror in the back. So she uses the mirror to pick out her new head and put it on straight, because apparently it can be put on crooked, and I guess is unfixable.
Okay.
So she just puts it on, and then she has her maids dress her, and she always wears simple white robes, because she's like, most women wear really pretty robes because they have one face, but I need a robe I can wear with any face. So I'm going to use my white gossamer robes. And that's
I'm
her
just
morning
so
routine.
confused on like what these heads are, because when you say it, like, okay, first time you say it to me, I'm like, oh, Jeffrey Dahmer, it's insane. Now I'm hearing it and it's like Mission Impossible face swap type of thing.
It might be like that. I'm not familiar with Mission Impossible.
Oh, okay.
But
There was one movie, I can't remember which one.
Have you seen Monkey Bone?
Whoa.
In Monkey
I
Bone,
say Mission Impossible, a very popular movie franchise, and then you ask me, you're like, no, I don't know, but have you seen Monkey Bone? Like, I should know what that is.
Oh my god.
in Monkey Bone, Whoopi Goldberg.
What is Monkey Bone? Is it a movie?
Hold on, I'll tell you all about it off
Okay.
the line. All I will say is that Whoopi Goldberg plays a character who is able to lose her head, and she has a closet full of like other heads that when she like puts them on, she has to twist them on,
This
and then she has to
weirdly-
warm it up, and then it like starts, and then it's just her new head.
Okay. You gotta
so
watch
it's
this movie.
Kind of like that. It's fucked up. It's kind of like that. But none of Langwadier's heads look alike. They're all very beautiful, but none of them look alike.
And in very different ways. He specifies in great detail
different
how
races and
many
hair
different
colors.
types
Okay, yeah, I
of
was
beauty
gonna ask,
are
actually.
being. So okay, this does raise a question for me because he describes a variety of like eye colors, hair colors, skin tones, but like I won't say that anything he says ranges beyond a very tan white person. Like nothing makes me think, oh, he's talking about the head of someone who's like black or
He's
like
talking about other white
he
races.
probably doesn't go any darker than like Vietnamese.
he does use the word Oriental to describe
cut
something.
that.
I know.
Don't
I know.
say
I didn't
Oriental
say it.
right
He
after
did.
is he Vietnamese?
Well, but I mean, honestly, like I'm like, okay, he's saying like it's a very diverse choice that she has, but are you telling me that her body's skin tone is gonna work with anything?
Will it match
If
up,
it's
or
like,
does she wear like gloves
See,
and covers up?
when it says she's getting dressed,
sleeve
it only
robes?
'Cause that's the
mentioned
look.
robes, but her hands are going to be exposed, her neck and like chest. If people can see a key on her wrist, she could be wearing gloves. But I don't know. It's just
actually-
interesting. I think it was just a something that L. Frank Baum wasn't thinking about at the time because he doesn't need to think about that. We can make the assumption as readers, like, oh, her skin tone is one way. She probably doesn't have a mark on her neck where it changes. But it is interesting because why not?
I look forward to rewatching Return to Oz because I haven't seen that in a super long time, but she is a character in that. I'll be interested in taking a peek inside of her cabinet in that movie and seeing if all the heads are white.
True.
But-
When was the Return of Oz made?
90s.
Okay.
The only key to open the head cabinets is a key carved out of pure ruby, which you might remember Langwadier wears around her left wrist from before when the Wheeler was like, none of us knows what she looked like. We can't remember her. Sorry, all of the Wheelers are the Firefly from Princess and the Frog. But yeah, they open with the one key. So Langwadier opens it up. She takes off head number 9, which she's currently wearing, hands it to Nanda, and then she fastens on head number 17.
And the thing about head number 17 is it's her most beautiful head. It has this like black raven colored hair and
She's
like
ready to show off a
dark
little.
eyes. She is, yeah, because she wants to show
Oh
everyone
yeah,
up.
that's exactly like her intention right now.
But number 17 brings with it a haughty nature. So she gets a little spicy when she's wearing that head.
She gets
like
evil.
Yeah, she makes like decisions that she she makes decisions or she like does like actions and then she puts it on a different head that like a couple days later and she's like, "Oh man, when I made that decision when I was wearing number 17, I was being a real bitch."
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
And so she
I honestly
regrets it.
feel
Head
that
17.
a lot. Like with certain makeups.
Oh
like
my
if
God.
I'm wearing a certain, if I'm like doing a smoky eye, like I'm going crazy that night.
Oh my god.
But if I'm doing like the bare minimum, I'm classy. I'm
That's
not
fair.
doing anything too crazy.
You know what you can get away with wearing a certain look.
Head 17, if she like took some shots and danced on the table, we could all deal with that. Head 17 like kills people. Yeah, she's not fun. She has a frightening temper. But Langwadier's so excited to meet her visitors and impress them with her beauty that she doesn't even think about this little problem that this head brings. So Langwadier goes out to meet them, and womp womp, it's just a little girl, a man who only moves when he's wound up, and a hen who's sitting in her work basket on her darning egg.
And this is what she says. Like, she comes back and she's like, oh my God, you're a little girl from Kansas in a gingham dress. You're a man who can't move, and you're a hen. And she's just like immediately pissed. And Belina is sitting on what is called a china egg, which is used to darn socks. And there's this weird footnote, which was recorded interestingly in the online version I was using to make my notes. But I remember in the book, there was the only footnote in the entire book. It's like a little number 1 next to where it said that's how she darned her socks, which darning is repairing socks. And it's like, even though it might seem strange that a princess would need to darn her socks, she would. And it's just not polite to talk about it in company, but just so you know, she would have to do that. Everyone has to do that. Why did he do that?
I don't know why he put that
so
Very
weird.
interesting.
It's like-
do a footnote for that.
And it's the only thing in the entire thing. Like, it's the only one in the entire book, which is just crazy.
It's like his agent was like, "Hey, I don't really like the princess darning her own socks," and he was just like, "Well, I'm leaving
it is like
so-
that. It's like he was like, I'm gonna keep it in, and if you have a problem, we'll put in this note. Like, but he does.
And Langwadier's like, "Oh, I thought someone of importance had called." And Dorothy's like, "Well, then you'd be gone damned right, because I'm fucking Dorothy. This is my smart ass little TikTok. This is Belina, who just every time she lays an egg. That's pretty. She does it proudly."
Yeah,
She does.
And Langwadier is like, get the hell out of here. Like,
She's like,
honestly,
"Stop talking."
Yeah, she's like, you're annoying me with your talking. You need to get the hell out.
And as we know, Dorothy does not take kindly to being spoken to that way.
Yeah.
I believe I don't have it in my notes, but I think she says something like, "You horrible thing.
She says, you horrid thing.
You horrid thing."
Yeah.
Oh my God, I can
She
picture
calls her
her
a
saying
thing.
that.
And the princess is like, you know what? Wait a minute. You get over here. You're looking kind of pretty now. Literally, she's like, you're kind of unique. Like, you're not like beautiful, but like you're kind of pretty. Like,
I'd be like, quit observing everything I'm doing. You're freaking me out. Actually.
well, what she says next is, I'm gonna take your head. I'll take it now, and I'll let you just leave.
so it is real people.
Well, she's going to give her 26 to leave. And she's like, it's not a perfect match, but you can just have it. And Dorothy's like, well, I believe I won't.
She's like, "The fuck you will." And
Yeah.
Langwadier's
Her
like,
head, her choice.
Yes.
absolutely. And Langwadier's like, "Well, there's really no use refusing, because in Ev, my word is law. Besides, I don't really like number 26 that much. I've hardly used it, so it's like new."
Yeah, she's like, it's barely been worn. And Dorothy's
Oh
like,
my.
no, I'm not going to do that.
She-
I like
she's-
the head I was born with.
Yeah.
Dorothy literally says, "I don't know what the fuck number 26 is, and
She
I don't
literally
want to
said
know." Yeah, she literally, that's in the book.
But she does say no. She like Langwadier is like, so you're refusing me. And Dorothy's like,
"Duh."
yeah, of course I'm refusing you. And she's like, okay, I'll lock you up until you agree. You'll be going to the tower. And she calls in her army, which is this like big fat colonel apparently, and 10 like very lean, like kind of skinny soldiers.
Yeah.
So
They
they
all
just
look-
like march in.
They all look very sad and discouraged.
Yeah. I imagine them all
This
being like
place is
really
horrible.
hungover.
This place
yeah.
is just horrible.
And
Well-
Langwadier is like, "Hey, seize Dorothy." And the colonel's like, "To hear is to obey," and just like
He
kind of,
grabs Dorothy.
but like without any passion.
Yeah.
You know?
He grabs though.
he's just
He
just
takes
being
her by the
ordered.
arm.
Yeah,
But
he
yeah.
grabs. And TikTok springs into action. He knocks the colonel down with the dinner pail. He's
got that dinner pail
He
still.
goes off on the soldiers. He knocks he knocks 7 of them down. And then all of a sudden, he freezes.
No, he's got to be wound up.
He is run down.
God Damn it, Dorothy.
And
I
he's-
bet you really wish you did that extra turn.
Okay.
Well, she does. I mean, she quickly tries to wind him back up.
she's, like,
but
running
the
to get
Colonel
it.
gets to
Yeah,
his feet and
he
gets a hold of
grabs
her.
her.
No. Oh, no.
And it's not, well, I mean, it's not Dorothy's fault, but specifically TikTok's like, you know what? I fought the Wheelers. Like,
been working
I've been
hard.
walking all day. Like, I should have lasted a couple more hours. Like, he should have known, but he was like, I didn't even think about it.
And
We've been busy.
Dorothy's just like, it is what it is.
Guess I'll be locked
straight
up for the
up.
rest of my life.
Yes.
Langwadier's like, okay, do you want to switch heads? And Dorothy's like, no.
Still no.
So the soldiers lock Dorothy up in the North Tower, and they try to move TikTok too, but he's so solid and heavy that they can't, so they just leave him there.
In her room?
Well, in the throne room, but Langwadier's like, fine, people think it's a new statue. I really don't care.
Is he like keeled over or is he standing?
He's
He's
just
like,
like
frozen
this.
where he is.
He was
Oh,
about to
okay.
whack, so he's
Yeah.
just frozen up.
So he's like posing.
Yeah.
And then Belina, or Langwadier's like, hey, Belina, like, put her in the chicken house and I'm going to fry her up for breakfast tomorrow.
Belina's like, Salander!
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, wait.
Well,
Sorry.
because Nanda is like, oh, like, she's pretty tough. Like, are you sure you want to eat her? And that, yeah. And then
Yeah.
Belina's like, that's slander.
It's like, you could eat this, but princesses can't, because I'm poisonous to princesses.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so Princess Langwadier says, okay, that's fine. We'll keep you for eggs. And if you refuse, we'll drown you in the horse trough. And that's the last sentence of chapter
The
6.
end of that chapter.
That's the last sentence.
Bum,
They
bum,
really
bum,
leave.
bum,
Oh, I mean, he did take a
bum.
writing class because he's wanting us to read that next
Yes.
chapter.
And we are going to.
Yeah, me too.
But not before I name it, damn it.
That's true. That was chapter 6, The Heads of Langwadier. And Blake, what would you call it?
I would call that Trading Faces.
Ooh,
Only
I
on
like
TLC. Chapter 7, Ozma of Oz, to the rescue.
So,
If that isn't telling.
Langwadier has sent Dorothy to the North Tower. Nanda, the maid, gives Dorothy some bread and water for dinner, which, of course, we know Dorothy loves
She
bread
loves
and water.
bread and water. If there was nuts and berries at that dinner, she would have been
She'd have
on
lost her
cloud
mind.
9.
Yeah.
She's like, do you have any raisins, please? Dorothy also, it's funny, after our conversation about the crystal bed, Dorothy sleeps on a stone
See,
slab.
When you were like, do you have this in your notes? And I was like, no, but I thought of this about her sleeping on a
didn't-
stone slab.
We are just flip it and reverse it.
Interesting. So
However-
like Jesus.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. He sleeps
Well, he
behind
was-
a stone.
He was dead.
It's like Aslan.
on a stone slab.
Well,
Yeah.
she also has one pillow and a silk
Ugh,
blanket.
I would not be able to do that.
The silk blanket's what gets me because I wondered how cold does it get. But I also
It's probably fucking cold.
I
Because it's
bet.
like what?
Because-
It's
Well,
a
they're on the-
dungeon.
also-
Is she in a dungeon?
Well,
She's in
here's
the
the
North
thing.
Tower.
She's in a tower,
Oh, the
but
tower, that's
later in this episode, she will be speaking out of the window, which I assume is not an open and shut window, but it's just some
Yeah,
like
it's just a
like
hole.
bar.
Just like, oh, it might have bars.
bars,
but it's like
yeah.
5 stories up. So like she's not escaping without dying. So it might
Yeah,
not
she
be
can't-
bars.
Can't
jump.
climb down that.
But still, I mean, she's sleeping in a cement room on a cement
Yeah.
floor with a
With a piece of
coverlet.
silk. Yeah. So
What time of the year is it? Or do they even have seasons?
Well, I mean,
well,
it
she's
was
in
a-
the South Pacific, South Pacific. She's
Yeah.
between San Francisco and Australia, so it should be moderately warm depending on the time of year. It
yeah,
could
any
be.
time of year, pretty warm, but hurricane season.
Yeah. Oh God. Well, it isn't raining.
But
Anyway.
in the morning, though, Dorothy, she gets up, she looks out the windows to see if there's any chance at all of escape. The room she's in, it's not super high up, but by like our modern standards, it's low, but it is high enough for her to like not be able to jump.
Yeah. I mean, from as high as she is, she's able to see the beach where they landed. She can even see what she thinks is the chicken coop.
To which I say, no, you didn't, Dorothy. It's not possible. When they came out of the forest, they were a mile from the palace and couldn't see the flowers in front of it. Now she's more than a mile away from the coast where she crashed a day ago.
But
she cannot.
She's also
see the
5 stories in the air. It's
She
like
can't see the
40,
coop.
it's like seeing the Mount Hood from McAdam.
Could you see something you left on Mount Hood?
Well, no, Mount Hood's 50 miles away. I'm imagining the beach being like 5 miles away because they walked there in the course of an afternoon.
But I feel like, yeah, I don't know. That seems a little too far away to see such a specific item.
Yeah, I think
It could be
it's a
true.
little extra.
And L. Frank Baum says that she sees what she thinks could be the chicken
He
coop.
does say what she
As
thinks.
I guess that's
as a
true.
person, I believe it was the chicken coop, but that's just me.
Yeah, I mean, she has a look-see around.
Yeah. To the north, there's a deep valley with mountains on each side and one big mountain at the very far end. So it's kind of like a little trough. And then she looks to the west. And pretty near to the castle, she sees the deadly desert, which separates Ev and Oz.
Oh, they're that close.
Yes. For some reason, the capital of Ev.
Why does this place seem so small compared to...
It does.
Well,
Oz?
so
Well, it'll-
she's only seen beach,
Come on.
this palace, and desert. So
And the mountains. So
and the mountains.
the
So
valley
she doesn't
that
know
stretches-
how far Ev goes.
yeah, the valley that stretches out toward the mountains is like lush and beautiful, and it's a deep valley. So
Yeah.
there's a whole valley on the other side that we haven't
I guess
seen
when I
yet.
think of like when they like crash landed or
Mm-hmm.
not crash landed but like found their way onto the beach, it was just giving me like island feels. But yeah, that's how. But it changes things now because now I'm thinking, oh well, maybe it's maybe they just landed on a part of the beach, and it stretches out.
They could have just landed
It's like California.
exactly. I was gonna say they could have landed in Astoria, Oregon,
yeah.
North America.
There's
Like,
plenty of coast to
uh,
walk down. There's
Yeah.
plenty of
Yeah.
forest
There's a
to
lot
walk
that's
in.
happening behind them.
she can see the beach on one side, some like lush kind of like forest on one side
It is
of the
kind of
valley.
strange though that the kingdom would be so close to the desert.
See-
I just want to say that.
I agree because of desertification.
But
Desert.
Do they banish people? I feel like this
Well-
is a place
well,
that
When you
banishes
step
people.
feet on the desert, you die. It's a deadly desert. It
Makes
takes
you
the life
wonder-
from you.
makes you wonder why the king chose the water death instead of the immediate deadly desert death.
Well, he had to
Oh, yeah,
throw the
that's true.
key for TikTok's tomb into the water first.
True, but couldn't he have also thrown that in the
Just
deadly
toss it a
desert
few
death
feet to
and
the desert.
No one would ever
no
have
one
it.
get it. They would be throwing out like little like grappling hooks to like grab it. Like people would be putting out a net
Anything
to just
could
pull
happen.
it. And I have some questions about the
Anything
desert for
can
later.
happen.
But for now, what we know is that the deadly desert's there, and she's like, "Oh, Oz is right over there. Like, I wish that I could get over there, but like, I'm not going to be able to."
She
and
misses Oz.
How
she-
terrible this horrid deadly desert that no one could possibly get beyond. Wait, what's that? On the horizon? Could it be?
Stop.
All
Who
of a
is it? Gump?
Well, all of a sudden, she sees what she thinks is a cloud. And she's like, no,
I forgot she doesn't know who Gump is.
it's a spot of silver.
Oh.
No, it's a mass of rainbow colors moving swiftly across the desert. That's
What
her
in
final
the-
answer.
What in the land?
And then,
Oh,
as she's watching, something is moving through the desert. It's getting closer to her. What she can see as it gets closer and closer, it's a wide green rug, like a floor rug, and it's unrolling itself perpetually across the desert. And there's a procession of people walking on it, presumably from the other side of the desert,
Yeah.
which would be Oz.
so at the front we have a chariot,
A golden
Oh my God,
chariot.
Which is-
Ozma?
which is being pulled by a huge lion and a tiger
and a huge tiger. And they're walking perfectly in unison. They're prancing. Yeah.
standing in the chariot. Standing in the chariot. Who do we have?
what we have is a beautiful girl around Dorothy's age and Dorothy's size, but she wears flowing silver robes and she holds an ivory scepter tipped with 2 prongs that lead to the letters O with a Z in the middle, studded with
my
diamonds.
gosh.
And she is just holding it up aloft.
Dorothy's
I
like,
love her.
"Oh my land, this must be the Ozma." I'm being told to tone it down.
We're about to be told the whole story in Dorothy voice.
But yeah, she's like, "This must be the Princess Ozma who TikTok had told her about earlier." Behind the chariot, Dorothy sees the Scarecrow, no longer King Scarecrow, just a Scarecrow, riding on the back of a wooden sawhorse.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
And this
we love a
wooden-
cameo.
This wooden sawhorse.
I know he has it.
This wooden sawhorse, it's prancing just as well as any meat horse ever could. Meat horse. Why is he bringing it up? It's like he knew we were talking about it 15 years later.
He loves a
feel
meat
like
horse.
we have to
He loves a
change-
meat animal.
We have to
But
change the
also-
meat dog merch into just meat merch
Meat
because
merch?
everything is meat now.
I hate that. But so then behind the Scarecrow is the Tin Woodman. And he gives actually a very in-depth description of him, but he just says he's marching. He's really shiny and beautiful. He has his pretty axe. And he is leading an army of 27 soldiers of varying shapes and sizes. And interestingly, they're all dressed in extremely different uniforms.
Yeah,
like,
they all have their own unique,
yeah.
colorful uniform.
It's not like a colonel and 26 men. It seems like it's like all these men seem like they're dressed completely differently. You can't really tell.
They're all captains of their own lives.
I know how to
That's how
confuse
it
them in
looks.
battle.
Right? Yeah. And then, but right behind them, the carpet is rolling itself up. So there's always just enough room. And this doesn't make sense in a logical way.
Oh my God. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, no, it doesn't make sense in a logical way. I understand where he's going, but the carpet in the front is always unrolling. The carpet in the back is always rolling back up. So they're always walking on carpet and never touching the deadly desert. But I mean, if it was a real carpet, you'd run out of the front part really quick.
Yeah, if it's
So-
rolling in the back, it's not an escalator. That's not
Yeah.
being pulled to the
Yeah.
front.
Yeah.
I'm imagining like a
What's this wizardry?
exactly.
I
It's
think
magic. It's like a GIF you see
if
on
you-
the internet or something of a spiral unrolling, and it's never going to end because it's Photoshop.
It's way better if it's unrolling ahead of them
Yeah,
and
'cause
just
that's what I would-
vanishing behind them.
That's what I pictured when you
Oh.
said the rug to begin with. That's what I was picturing.
Oh. Well, you'll have something interesting you'll be learning in just one moment.
I mean,
but
we're all pissing ourselves, and so's Dorothy.
and I do have a quick just thought experiment because it's like,
Oh.
oh, there's a carpet, so like, you know, they're walking on the carpet, they're not touching the deadly desert. What if the desert blows into their eyes? What if the sand blows into their mouth? Like, do you have to put your full weight on the body of the desert? Is the magic or the whatever deadliness not in the
protected
sand?
are
like,
they?
must exactly. It's like they must be protected
Like, do they
enough.
have a shield?
The sand can touch you, but you can't touch it.
See, that's the thing. I'm like, is it the intention? You can't
It's a
step
choice.
onto it. Yeah, it's like once you choose to step on
Even
the stand, you
though-
die.
You have free
Even
will.
though Glinda and Mombi had a foot race through it in the last book.
So that is an issue that we have, being that it has been stepped on before and did not sap the life. But in this book specifically, they say that anyone who walks will
Well, maybe
die
it's
because
something. It's like, you know, you won't survive it. No one ever survives it. Not that like if you touch it, you die.
I'm sorry. Survive it. No one else survives it.
Okay,
I will say
I've had a few.
in the book it says in the book that you cannot make contact with the deadly desert because it'll suck the
he get
life
so
out
specific?
of you. I mean, he kind of has to make this make sense.
I
He's
guess
he's
so.
trying to talk himself into it.
Yeah,
What?
he really is. It's confusing me, but that's
So,
fine.
but we're all caught up. I just
Yeah.
wanted to mention the idea that if there was a sandstorm, they would all be dead. Just a thought experiment.
That is really interesting. But you know what? Dorothy could care less.
No.
Because she is like, my BFFs are here and they
Yeah.
have an army. So that's literally the best thing that could be happening.
She sees them and she's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I'm saved." Like,
Good
there's
news.
no
She's like,
question
they-
in her mind.
they
She's
always
like,
figure it out.
"I'm saved." Yes, and
I mean, they
do.
killed 2 witches last.
always
last
do.
book. They
Yeah,
were
they're powerful.
They did more than just
So
that, bitch.
once won a war last
That's
book.
true. They killed 40 wolves, 40 bees. 40. I forgot about all those too. They killed.
Once
They
once the whole procession is off the sand and on the grass, the green carpet just rolls itself up and disappears entirely.
Disappears, which I think would be a better argument for it disappearing behind them as they went. So I'm glad you guys have that
consistency.
comment because it would make sense. Because it just rolls up, goes away. That's it.
Okay.
But so Dorothy's watching from the window as Ozma, all of our friends from the previous
Sneak attack
books,
over here.
no Jack Pumpkinhead apparently.
Well, he
But-
died.
Oh, that's right. He died at the
He
last one.
rotted.
Yeah.
Right.
His
But
worst
he died
nightmare.
happy. He died happy.
He died happy. I mean, everyone else is alive.
And happy.
But-
So
yeah.
But yeah, Dorothy's just watching from the window as everyone just marches. They get onto the grass. They just march straight up to the palace. Scarecrow gets off of the sawhorse and he goes to read that sign on the door that we saw earlier about the left wing.
Oh yeah.
And Dorothy's just like, hey, it's me, Dorothy. Help.
Dorothy's
help.
here.
Yeah,
Dorothy
I'm
up here.
And the Scarecrow looks up and he says,
she has such main character syndrome.
well, she
Like,
really does.
yeah.
Because the Scarecrow's like, Dorothy who?
They have no idea she's there. They're not there for her.
They don't know that she's there.
They're just like they have their own mission.
yeah.
Yeah.
They
He's
went
like-
to Ev because that's somewhere else they know about.
Yeah, she's like, Dorothy of Kansas. He's like, what the hell are you doing up there, Dorothy?
Yeah.
Oh
and she's
my
like,
God.
please,
I need to be
yeah,
saved.
you have to save me. And he's like, you look pretty safe up there. You're not going to drown. You're not going to fall. You're not going to get an ambush. You
yeah,
look
and she's
fine.
like, well, I'm being held prisoner and I don't want to
Yeah,
be
why
here.
are they-
I don't know why the Scarecrow's going off like this. And
Okay,
this is,
'cause they-
this is a theme for this chapter, actually, a little bit for him.
It
I'm gonna look
confuses
into it.
me because it's okay. Well, you're gonna explain why they're coming here, but like my first intent is like war.
yeah.
Honestly, and
I'm
there's a
like,
lot going on.
well, like if you see her up in a tower, don't you assume that something bad is going on?
Could you
Actually,
imagine?
That's a good point.
Could you imagine being Dorothy and seeing them coming across the desert and being like, oh my God, my friends are here.
Yeah.
And then when you're like, oh, good, you've come to save me. They're like, who? What? Oh, Dorothy? What are
Humbled
you doing here, Dorothy?
real quick.
We didn't
Humbled
invite
real
you.
quick.
Yeah, they're all so confused. But eventually, Ozma has been like listening, obviously, this whole time, and she looks up and she calls out, and she's like, "Why have you been imprisoned? And like, by whom?" And Dorothy's like, "Oh, the Princess Langwidere imprisoned me because I don't want to switch my head with hers." And Ozma's like, "Oh, well, I promise I will liberate you because that's insane."
She literally says, don't blame ya.
Yeah, she's like, I
That's it.
can't blame you for hating that and for being imprisoned. I will help.
And this is the first time Ozma and Dorothy have ever spoken to each other.
Yes.
Which
Makes me really
just
happy,
kind
yeah.
of blows my mind. We've read a lot more books with these two.
Yeah, we do. A lot. The Road to Oz. Just
I
wait.
love the introduction.
But the Tin Woodman, he knocks on the door, and when Nanda opens it, Ozma and her gang, they just walk right in, straight for the throne room. Nanda turns around, runs screaming
Yeah.
for Langwidere.
Also-
just like,
For
'cause
the record,
army just marching in.
Yeah,
The
she's
lion
like,
and-
she's not gonna like
the,
this.
yes, the lion and the tiger stayed outside, so they're outside. But the 27 soldiers like are stomping up the stairs because apparently they know where the chamber is because they're like already walking toward it.
They've
And
been
yeah,
there before.
Nanda's like, "Hey, something like run! There's a fire!" And Langwidere's just pissed.
She's pissed. And they flood into the throne room, and Langwidere comes out and she's like, how dare you get out of here. I'll have you all bound and thrown in my darkest dungeon.
Yeah.
Because that's the worst thing, is the
What
darkness.
dungeons does she have or
It
towers?
makes you wonder.
You've got to wonder.
But
Yeah.
She's just one lady living in a like 25 family house. So.
yeah, well, two of the wings have been destroyed though
Oh, true.
by her. I assume.
But yeah, Ozma just smiles on Langwidere's face, and she's like, "I've actually come a long way, and actually, you must listen to what I
yeah,
have to say."
she's like, "Sit down, please," and you must
Yes.
listen. And Langwidere gets even more pissed, and she's like, "You're telling me what I must do? You're telling me what I must do?" And Ozma's like, "Listen, I'm the ruler of the land of Oz. I'm very powerful. I could destroy all of your lands if I wanted to, but I actually don't really want to do that, and that's not what I came here to do. And I'm actually here to set free the royal family of Ev, who I just heard has been imprisoned and sold to the Gnome King. So I'm here to restore them to the palace and save all of them now that the king is dead.
Yeah, so it's fairly recent. Like Ozma just got news,
she
came
just
straight
heard.
away.
And Langoudier is
Oh,
speechless.
shit.
She just shuts the hell up.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because Ozma's straight up like, I'm not here for the drama. I just want to help you.
Yeah.
And then Langoudir's like, okay, no drama actually, because I hate ruling a country. I don't want to do this. Please get my family back. Like, I just want to look at my beautiful self all day. That's all I want to do.
Yeah.
She does
sound familiar. It's like the whole entire last book.
Pretty
Like,
much
Ginger
with
hated
Ginger.
ruling, and she
Yeah.
just wanted all the pretty things.
I do remember that.
It's
Yeah.
like get a grip.
Well, it's
Elf
interesting.
Mom.
Well, all the women who are evil, quote, well, who, I don't know, Langoudir's kind of evil, but like kind of not. But like Ginger is like evil for most purposes, but like her evils come from like her wanting power but not having responsibility and like being like kind of facile. So it's like,
Yeah. And
okay,
Wants to be
like,
comfortable.
yeah.
As far
and,
as
like,
we
not
know,
work for it.
as far as we know, only that one head makes her evil. She
That's
honestly
true.
might not be that.
She plays the
the
mandolin
rest
in
of the
number
heads.
9, so
Yeah.
She's a creative in number 9.
yeah, it helps her.
But yeah, Langoudir's like, I devote like at least 10 minutes a day ruling a country. Absolutely hate it. Ozma's like,
Yeah.
okay, cool. We can discuss how to save the royal family, but first you need to release that little girl who's up in your tower.
Yeah, she's like, speaking of prisoners, literally it's that. She's like, by the way, we're talking about prisoners. You have one, and you need to release her. And Langoudir's like, oh, I fully forgot I had her imprisoned.
Oh.
God, what was that? Yesterday?
I don't know how I'm supposed to remember what happened yesterday. I'm honestly so busy,
God,
and
thank
so
God we're getting her
yeah.
out of there.
I know, because she's literally just like, oh yeah, let's go, let her go, and I'm like, oh my god. And also, I wonder what head she's wearing right now. Is
She's
she still wearing 17?
17. That's why she
Oh,
came out
It
all like,
mentioned
who
it.
the hell did they
All
go on?
hot. Yeah. So then they
And
go
then
up to
she
the
was
tower.
humbled real quick.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sit
Yeah.
down. But yeah, Langoudir's like, oh yeah, of course. Like, hey, come on, Ozma, I'll show you to her. So everyone else stays behind in the throne room, drawing room, and the Scarecrow just leans up against this copper statue, and I'm sure you can see where this is going.
It turns out to be TikTok. He's leaning on TikTok, but he's also stepping on his foot. And TikTok, apparently for the first time today, speaks and is like, excuse me, you're standing on my foot.
Please get off my foot.
Yeah. And the Scarecrow's like, oh, whoa, sorry. Are you alive? And TikTok's like, well, I'm not alive. But I do speak and think, and I can move when I'm wound up, and Dorothy actually has the key to wind me up.
Yeah, and Scarecrow's like, oh, well, Dorothy will be back with the key soon, but God, I feel sorry for you for not being alive.
They're about to go off on TikTok, and I just want everyone to have a trigger warning for it.
But you know what?
Because it's insane. No, it's insane.
TikTok already knows where this is going, I feel, because
I
TikTok is just
agree.
like, okay, I'll bite. Why do you feel sorry that I'm not alive? You know?
Yeah. Scarecrow's like, well, I have brains and you don't. And TikTok's like,
Oh,
well,
his rusty nails now.
see, okay, well, we're
Right?
gonna get there.
Of course,
Because
he starts talking about his fucking brains that
Yeah.
are just rat shit and pins.
well, and TikTok is like, well, I have extremely fine like steel brains that I used to think. I'm made of machinery.
Yeah, he-
What's your brain made of?
He's like, I have the Smith and Tinker's improved combination steel brains.
Yeah.
What about you?
And the Scarecrow is like, I actually don't know, but it came from the wizard, and I can think real good. And I have
Scarecrow knows that guy's not a wizard. He
does.
knows that.
Yeah.
He's deliberately going out of his way
He
to
is
lie.
going out of his way.
and he kind of diverts it because he's like, and I have a great conscience. Do you have a conscience? And TikTok's like, no, I'm a machine. And the
He's
Tin
aware of what he is.
Yes, and the
And
Tin
he doesn't
Oh,
care.
and we're about to get there because the Tin Woodman's like, oh, and no heart, I assume. And TikTok's like, no.
These two,
Like, do I need to repeat what I am?
Well,
Did I stutter?
He will be repeating it one final time after the Tin Woodman gets pretty shitty. Because
Oh, no.
he's like, well, you're inferior to the Scarecrow and I because number one, we're both alive, and number two, he has brains, and or he has brains that don't need to be wound up, and I have a heart that beats continually in my chest.
Yeah.
Which isn't even true.
It's not.
It's
it doesn't
a sawdust. It's a piece of velvet with
It's a
sawdust in it.
decoration.
Yeah.
And TikTok is like, yeah, okay, I'm inferior because as I've been saying from the beginning of this conversation, I'm not alive. I'm a machine. I don't care. Like
what more can I say to get it across to you?
He literally opens that thing with, I congratulate you. That's what he says. He's like, I congratulate you. I'm inferior to you both. Like, but then he's like, I'm made of things, and then I'm wound up to do things, and then I do them, and that's good. I'm just full of machinery. And then I have some scarecrow body horror.
Oh, how I have missed this.
It's more the scarecrow projecting his body horror, though.
It's like Scarecrow serial killer.
It's like Scarecrow
horror.
intention horror.
Scarecrow
True
slasher
crime.
horror. Can we
Crime
adopt that?
horror.
We'll see. We'll workshop it. But the Scarecrow, is like, someday I'm going to take you apart and see exactly what's inside of you.
Okay.
And TikTok's like, the fuck
Yeah,
you will.
he's like,
please
please don't. Please
You would
don't.
have absolutely no idea how to put me back together and I'd become useless.
Yeah. And then the Scarecrow's like, oh, you're useful?
Oh, okay.
Literally, that's what he says.
I won't rip you apart.
Yeah. He's like, I'm not a good mechanic, and I'll just mix y'all up, so I won't take you apart.
They become.
Yes. It's interesting.
Scarecrow is no longer a king, and I think it's really getting to his... I mean, I guess his
ego?
head, even though he
Yeah, it's
doesn't
like
have a
his
real
ego.
brain. But thankfully, we are saved by the bell, and Ozma, Langwidere, and Dorothy return to save us from this cancer of a conversation.
And Ozma and Dorothy are hand in hand. And we forgot to mention it when she was in the tower, but when she first had her first little conversation with Ozma, L. Frank Baum informed us that even though Dorothy had never met her, she knew that she would come to love Ozma
Quickly.
So yes, quickly. And so they're already forming a bond, and they're just like,
and they're
two
like the
girls,
same
they're the exact
age.
same age. They're apparently the exact same size. He specified that, and they
Okay,
are in the
that's-
illustration too.
Do you think they'd still be friends if Ozma was Tip?
Ooh, good question.
Probably. This is Hannah. This is an image of them with Princess Langwidere.
Yeah. Okay, Langwidere.
Yeah, she's really giving.
Did she
in
ate?
this?
Did she ate that?
She did. Yeah, number 17 is a good face.
It's not as dark as I'd expect, considering she said it had dark hair. But that is the end of chapter 7, which was originally called Ozma of Oz to the Rescue. And Blake, what would you call that chapter?
I think you guys are going to like this one. This one was hard for me. Ozma's rugged journey through the desert.
Wow. See? Woo! You put in the effort, you win the awards.
Yeah,
Thanks,
that was
guys.
good. That was
Thanks.
good. Mhm.
And that actually is where we are going to leave it off today with Oz Hour after chapter 7, learning about how Dorothy and the crew make it to Evna, the capital of Ev. Thank you for listening to Oz Hour. Please join us next time when we continue with Chapter 8, The Hungry Tiger. Please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, and follow us on Instagram at Oz Hour Podcast for the latest on everything Oz.
Oz Hour, created and hosted by Blake Stone and Wyatt Swingham. Co-hosted by Hannah Aguirre. Audio production by Charlie Johnson. Theme music written and performed by Rudy Klobus. Cover art by Valentin Lucas.